please silence your cell phones.
Violations of human rights.
4 pipe bombs and a book on how to kill people were found with
severe damage to her nervous system when she was struck by a pickup truck.
60 people have been left homeless by an apartment house fire. The area's hardest hit by violence, some of the buildings still burning. A victim of freeway violence clings to life tonight.
Gang members shot and the crowd really did a number on him.
Can hardly wait to raise your taxes.
What's wrong, Mr. Anchorman? Tell me who's lying in the mud this time. Who's dead, Mr. Anchorman? What's the latest gossip? What's the latest crime? Thank God you're telling us the truth. You know how hard it is for us to find the proof. But just once, before we lose the fight, why don't you tell us what went right tonight?
Well, I know you're just trying to do your job, and you know I'm just trying to do mine. But I got 2 eyes that are telling me that one of us is partially blind. And we believe you as we cry in our soup and we watch the world coming undone. Yeah, we believe you as you give us the scoop, and we run and hide and stay inside and watch till we get numb.
What's wrong?
What's wrong,
Mr. Anchorman? Tell me who's lying in the mud this time. Who's dead? Mr. Anchorman. What's the latest gossip? What's the latest crime? Thank God you're telling us the truth. You know how hard it is for us to find the proof. But just once, before we lose the fight, why don't you tell us what went right tonight?
Well, it's nice to know what's going on, but who says that the important news is bad? You have to feed us this crap every hour, every day, until we lost the only hope that we had. And we believe you, 'cause you look so fine, and you probably don't know what you've done. Yeah, we believe you as you make up our minds, and we run and hide and stay inside and watch till we get numb.
What's wrong?
What's wrong,
Mr. Anchorman? Tell me who's lying in the mud this time. Who's dead? Mr. Anchorman. What's the latest gossip? What's the latest crime? Thank God you're telling us the truth. You know how hard it is for us to find the proof. But just once, before we lose the fight, why don't you tell us what went right tonight? What's wrong, Mr. Anchorman? Tell me who's lying in the mud this time. Who's dead, Mr. Anchorman? What's the latest gossip? What's the latest crime? Thank God you're telling us the truth. You know how hard it is for us to find the proof. Just once, before we lose the fight, why don't you tell us what went right tonight? What's wrong, Mr. Anchorman? Tell me who's lying in the mud this time. Who's dead, Mr. Anchorman? What's the latest gossip? What's the latest crime? Thank God you're telling us the truth.
Thank God you're telling us the truth. Where would we be without the mainstream news? Actually, now it's no longer mainstream news. If you check their ratings, it's more like just corporate news. The news that the 6 corporations that own all the communication channels want you to hear. Hello, friends, and welcome to Uncle Neal's Neighborhood, Episode 6. This is the home for all things avuncular. I'm Uncle Neal, a.k.a. Neal Fox. When I was in high school, I learned the term yellow journalism. The way they taught us was that these 2 newspapers, one of them owned by Hearst, were fighting with each other for the greatest, most spectacular headlines. And this battle actually got the U.S. into the Spanish-American War. Nowadays, I think 95% of journalism is yellow. Let me just read to you the definition of yellow journalism. This is from Imaginated.com. Quote, publications and practitioners of yellow journalism throw all principles of balanced, fair, and objective reporting out the window. Instead, they choose to lie by omission, present facts in a non-contextual way, and even go to the length of fabricating stories in search of more viewers and readership. Unquote. Sound familiar? The final straw that got America into the war was a false flag event. The sinking of the USS Maine off the Havana harbor. The newspapers said the ship was torpedoed. It was later found out to be an explosion on the ship. A false flag, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is when the public doesn't want to be in a war, but the generals really need to get a war going. So what do? They got to get the public on their side. They got to get them hopping mad. So they create a fake event where it looks like the enemy attacked one of our ships or one of our twin towers or whatever it is and killed a bunch of our own citizens. Then, of course, we get angry and want revenge, and boom, you got a war. And the military-industrial complex is thrilled and delighted. The press was slimy ever since their inception, but the last few years have really hit bottom. They're not even news anymore, just opinion. It's basically propaganda foisted on its own people. The CIA has got its hand in CNN and other news sources, and they've gotten so bold they don't even try to cover up the lying anymore. Let me read a bit of an article by a guy named Kyle Scheidler. I think that's how you pronounce it. He says, DHS is no longer concerned solely with enemy lies spread abroad, but increasingly with information spread by, quote, domestic threat actors, unquote, read American citizens. And no longer are they merely concerned with disinformation, which is false material spread to manipulate an opponent, but with misinformation, which DHS considers information that is false but not intended to cause harm, and malinformation, which means information which is true but the government considers harmful anyway. He goes on, this raises the question of who put a government intelligence and law enforcement agency in the position of declaring not only what is true or false, but also determining whether information is good or harmful for consumption by free citizens, unquote. You know, it's not the government's job to tell us what's true or false. They just need to keep the traffic lights working and then get out of our way. And by the way, freedom of speech doesn't mean you're just free to say what doesn't offend someone. In fact, its main purpose is to protect speech that does offend someone. No one needs to protect speech that doesn't offend. Listen to some examples of how the press is covering the freedom convoys.
Some of the organizers of this protest, which, as I mentioned, started more than a week ago, they do want to overthrow the government.
Canadian officials calling the situation a, quote, nationwide insurrection.
The police chief says COVID protests are a, quote, nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
A nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
And just think of the language. I know it sounds familiar to you, right? A threat to democracy, an insurrection, sedition.
The police say that they are under-resourced and they are overwhelmed. They have said that this city is under siege.
It's not just truckers. There's a lot of, I've heard there's QAnon supporters in the crowd.
Residents that I have spoken to who say they feel terrorized, intimidated.
It's a cult.
I don't know if you've seen any of these Nazi white supremacist terrorists, but they're all having a good time partying, and they brought their kids, and they're dancing, and they're handing out food, and they're all helping each other. And all they want is their freedom, control of their own bodies, their own futures, their own livelihoods. they're cooperating with the police, and yet they're being called terrorists. There are tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting, and it's catching on all across the world, and yet they're being censored. It's the same corporate media morons that are trying to cancel Joe Rogan right now, just because he had some doctors on with different opinions than the mainstream narrative. Glenn Greenwald sums it up best.
But the reason this is so notable is because there is nobody who spreads disinformation as aggressively, as toxically, as frequently, and as recklessly, as deliberately as the very outlets of the corporate media who are united now in denunciation of Joe Rogan. Watching these people at these media outlets pretend to be offended because Joe Rogan spreads disinformation when it's all they do, essentially, when that's their job title and their purpose, would be like watching neocons object to somebody and demand their deplatforming because they believe too much in war. That's how bizarre it is.
And Howard Stern, the great shock jock, has found another way to shock us. He's become mainstream. Here he is trying to defend Neil Young's censorship of Joe Rogan.
I don't think he's for censorship. I don't think Neil Young is for censorship. I just think he's saying, look, I don't want to be part of this organization. Because if my music is helping people bring people to the table, and then they're spreading something as lethal as don't take the vaccine, do this.
That makes sense.
I'm against any kind of censorship, really. I really am. I don't like censorship. But when you're talking about life and death, like poor Meatloaf got sucked into some weird cult.
Yeah, I'm against censorship, but such a small word, and yet really changes the meaning of everything. And as far as the freedom convoys go, I cannot see any possibility of Trudeau winning. Mandates are already being dismantled all over the world, even in some parts of Canada. Trudeau, though, is such a bleep that he just might do something really, really stupid and escalate this whole thing into violence. And that'll create some more great stories and lies for the mainstream media. I mean, the corporate news media. They really aren't mainstream anymore. And in America, we're starting our own convoy at the beginning of March. It's going to go from California all the way across to Washington, D.C. Hopefully, Let's Go Brandon isn't going to do anything stupid on his part, but of course, anything he does is stupid. Right now, it looks like the Biden administration is trying to start a war with Russia just to divert attention away from how bad Joe has been doing. So keep your eyes on the alternate news and pay attention to anything that might look like a false flag. It probably is. All right, let's take a little break. Here's a word from one of our sponsors. I can't believe it's an implant.
In a world where bigger is better, don't you deserve the best? Breast implants have come a long way since your mother was a girl. Current technological advancements have made it possible for the first time to have breasts so real, only your surgeon will know for sure. Your boyfriend will be so thrilled he'll say, "I can't believe it's an implant." And now, for a limited time, I Can't Believe It's an Implant is offering a 20% rebate on hiney lifters and thigh thwackers. We're at 10 convenient locations throughout the metropolitan area, so don't wait. Put a bounce in your step and a smile on his face. I can't believe it's an implant.
Void where prohibited by law.
If you haven't heard it yet, you've got to check out my new album called Unhinged. It was inspired by the events of 2020. I am one of the few artists around willing to speak out for freedom, and I've been doing it for the last 50 years, so I'm not new to this. Long, long history in the music business, and I'm getting incredible reviews. So stream it, buy it, go watch my music videos on youtube.com/Neal Fox. You really need to see the videos to get the full impact of these songs. I create them all myself on zero budget. So that's youtube.com/Neal Fox. Neal with an A, not with an I like Neil Young. And you could also get all this information and more about me at my website, therealnealfox.com. And by the way, I also create my own t-shirt designs, merch with a message. I think you're going to like it. So let's get back to the show. John Lennon wrote the song, All You Need Is Love. Yeah, you do need love, but I wouldn't mind having a car and a place to live and some clothes, maybe some food on the table. But yeah, without love, life can be pretty lonely. I started writing songs back in, I guess I was 14, 15 years old, and I kind of challenged myself not to do anything cliche. So I wouldn't even use the word love in a song for many years. And that was quite a challenge because everybody's writing about love and wants to hear about love. I was writing more about them tearing down the trees and destroying the rainforest so they could build a road. But I eventually met a girl up in a hotel in the Catskill Mountains in New York. I was playing in the band opposite another group called the Ink Spots. Yeah, the Ink Spots from the 1930s and 40s. And this girl came up to visit her uncle, who was the owner of the hotel. And the name of the hotel was the Tamarack Lodge up in the Catskill Mountains. And after many years of being married to this wonderful lady, I figured I'd better write a love song pretty damn quick. And since this is February and Valentine's Day is upon us, I figured I'd play the song for yous. That's plural for you in New York talk. I can't tell you how many boxes of chocolates this song saved me from buying. It's called You.
You light the sun in the sky. You make the gleam in my eye. One look and I go to pieces. Reality speaks, it's meaning. You steal the heat from the fire. You fill my heart with desire. Your soul, the color of roses. The moonlight exposes the perfect you. It's only 'cause of you. It's all because of you. You pluck the strings in my heart. You smile and melodies start. One look and I go to pieces. Reality ceases and nothing so pleases me too. If I can be with you. It's all because of you. It's all because of you. I breathe when I hear your name. I look and nothing's the same. When life is covered in sadness, delusion and madness, I see everything shiny and new. If I can be with you.
And that's why she loves me. That and the fact that I'm so incredible in bed. I better make some money real soon or she's out of here. Anyway, that wraps it up for another episode of Uncle Neal's Neighborhood. If you like what I'm doing and you want to support me, you can go over to patreon.com/Neal Fox. Neal with an A, not with an I. And you can become a patron. Doesn't cost much at all, and I'll thank you very much. Got a few perks there, too, if you want them. You could also download or stream my albums, all my albums, and I've got quite a few of them on Spotify. Follow me if you're there, and YouTube, and my website, therealnealfox.com. But the main way you can help me out is to just share. Share this podcast, share my videos, share my music. Go to youtube.com. I know YouTube is really a f***ed up place, but it still has most of my videos until we find a better solution that has playlists and all that. Go to youtube.com/Neal Fox, Neal with an A still. I do all my music videos myself on zero budget. I think you're going to like them. So remember, if you're not feeling that great, go out and find somebody you could help. Helping them is the best way you could help yourself. Bye for now. See you next time. Love you guys.